I went to Uganda for a short trip to visit my family, but somehow this trip changed my entire life. This trip made me leave everything I knew behind and move from Germany to Kenya. And trust me, I've never saw that coming either. Welcome to the channel. I am Marvin and I moved from Germany to Kenya 2 years ago. Here on this channel I share stories about life, business and travel across the African continent. Let me take you back where everything started. In 2019, I was still in high school, about to finish, just 19 years old, about to turn 20. And I was the first time back then in Uganda to celebrate the baptism because I still had family there from my Eritrean side. I went there, was already impressed but didn't think much of it. 2 years later, in 2021, I went there again, but this time with a different mission. I went there to support my uncle with looking into different kinds of business ventures he was supposed to start there. But during these 10 days there, somehow my own mindset has shifted as well. I started to think of why couldn't I make this move myself? Why couldn't I start a business here myself? And I remember one specific conversation I had with the family I have over there in Uganda, and he's one of the inspirations I had of moving to Kenya, and that's one of the reasons why I'm even just here right now. And during our conversation we had, he was telling me if any one of you guys can make a move here and do business here, it will be you. And this is something that still sticks with me until today, and one of the reasons why I'm just here right now and living here in Kenya for the last 2 years. So I'm very thankful for this conversation, and I realized how big of a difference this one trip has made in my life. It changed my entire mindset. It showed me, even if I was aware that I can do anything I want, I wasn't sure in what direction I want to go. But through this trip, through these conversations, and especially through this one conversation, I entirely shifted my whole focus and I found a new purpose. During this time in Germany, I was building and assisting my family with the business we have in Germany, and I was taking care of the e-commerce part of it. So I was in a good position. I was building the things all myself. I was running the processes, I was running the marketing part, I was making the sales, and we grew a lot in this time. So I already felt like I was achieving things and growing and learning and stuff like this. But at some point, this conversation somehow made me feel alive. This trip made me feel alive. It showed me that there's also another route I can take, that I'm not forced to stay there and do the things I was doing. This, even if I was aware of that I could do anything I want, I needed this reminder to make it really clear in my mind and to shape a new vision. I've understood that Germany was my safe space. I understood that I had worked there, that I have the people that I need there, I have my support system, I know the system, like how everything works. I just know how life there is. But somehow I feel like that this was the thrill I needed to be consciously aware that I'm able and ready to make such a move like this. During these 10 days, I started to understand that this trip has challenged my whole path I was on, the whole beliefs I had, because I knew that I could do anything I want, but I wasn't sure what I wanted, I wasn't sure where I want to go, and I wasn't sure if I could even make it in a foreign country, especially in an African country where I had no touch points in. I remember when I came back home to Germany, I felt like my life had a new purpose because I had a new vision, I had a new mission. I needed to figure out myself what I wanted to do on the African continent, in which country I wanted to move to. On the way of researching, on the way of figuring out what even I could do, I found Kenya along this way. And the more I was researching into this country and to research what I could do in one of these two countries that are my current options at that time, I started to feel more confident because I was again purpose driven. I was not just like building and making more sales for the family business. I was just not making more money for the family business. I was in an entire new position to reshape my entire life. So when I started this research phase and like finding my new purpose and like figuring out what I wanted to do, I booked my first flight for April 2022. So I think it's just 6 months later after I came back from Uganda and had the new purpose I just found and wanted to make things clear. I wanted to research on the ground, to speak to people locally on the ground. And I was just so ready and motivated that I was working endlessly. I was just working a lot in our business. I was also working then on the other planning part. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, making connections in Kenya, in Uganda, talking to different kinds of people to shape my vision and make things much more clearer for me that I actually had a target. The interesting thing how I even came to think of moving to Kenya instead of Uganda, even if I had there some kind of support system and I know people there, was that right after the trip from Uganda, I went with one of my uncles to Dubai, and there was at that time was the World Exposition, and also of course all African countries were there. They were representing what kind of investment opportunities they have, what kind of developments they have, where they are strong, what are the strongest sectors and stuff like this. And we did a lot of research going through all these different countries and figuring out, connecting with the locals, with the first Kenyans. And somehow I felt the most comfortable with the Kenyans as well. And of course, also in terms of development, was Kenya a bit further ahead than Uganda. Of course, the tech ecosystem is big. Kenya has the Silicon Savannah. There were a couple of reasons for me to make the choice to move to Kenya instead of Uganda. And also, I wanted to take on the biggest challenge, and this was just going all alone where no one is waiting to support you or like to put you in a net and take care of you from the get-go. There's one thing I want to pass on to you that you can learn from my personal experience and even my reasoning of coming here, my reasoning of being here, is that sometimes one conversation, sometimes one trip, sometimes one small thing that happens can change your entire perspective on what you are capable of. And I think it's so powerful that for me, even without coming with the intention of moving to Kenya or to Uganda, that I made this move just after visiting my family a second time. There could have been also multiple reasons why I couldn't go, because of work, because of other things, but this trip has just shifted my entire perspective. This shift has brought me here right now. This shift will influence my entire life, and this was just because of 10 days I spent in a new location where I wanted to see things with different eyes and with my own perspective at this point. The only thing I can think of is how different my life would have looked when I would have never gotten on this trip. It would be just a completely different life. I could have still be in Germany, still work with my family in the business, but instead I chose a complete different path for myself, a path where I can just rewrite everything at this moment. And what this basically means for me is just that you don't need to have everything figured out yet. I can just tell you this from my own experience. Things always fall into place, things will come together, especially if you put yourself in uncomfortable situations where you think that it might be too difficult, might be too abstract for you, or it might be just too challenging for you, but it never is unless you tell yourself that it is. The last thing I want to give you on your own way is that if you feel stuck with something, sometimes a new environment can help to change your entire perspective. It doesn't need to be this far as Uganda or something, but it just needs to be somewhere where you surround yourself with different people, where you're maybe a bit of alone, just to think of how you feel right now in your current situation, and if a move like this might be the solution for you, or if just you can break free from the things you're doing where you are right now. And this just to live the life you want to live. So now please tell me down below in the comments if you ever had a trip like this that's changed your entire perspective on life and made you do a complete switch. I would love to hear your stories too, and I will keep sharing mine. So watch some of the other videos right here I placed about my journey on life and doing business here on the African continent, and I see you in the next one.